Welcome back to Arise Prime Time. I'm Charles Anyekolu, and this is the point in the show where our analyst joins me for the rest of the program to give us his personal take on the news and the issues of the day. And with me in the studio today is Arise News current affairs analyst and founder and executive director of Agora Policy, Waziri Adio. Thank you for coming in, Waziri.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with our first guest, the director of the think tank for the Center for Democracy and Development, Idayat Hassan. She was giving us her assessment of where things stand with this election, where she sees them going, how noisy, messy and controversial the campaign has been so far. What's your assessment of her assessment?
That's quite interesting. I think she gave a good account of herself, and for CDD, which is the leading think tank in terms of democracy, and development and advocacy and policy work in Nigeria, So, but I like some of the things that she highlighted. The first thing is that the campaign has been on for just 1 month. Don't forget that we started on the 28th of September. So today is exactly 1 month, into the 5-month campaign. And there are some developments that we're seeing already. Some are positive and some are deeply concerning, especially the level of campaign-related violence. That's something that if we can be seeing that level of violence now,
that's a big worry, isn't it?
Especially in an election that's likely to be keenly contested. So that's something that we should worry about, because as we get closer to the election and as the results start coming in, the stakes will be higher. So it's very important. It's not just enough that the actors will sign a peace accord. It's very important to keep a close watch on that and make sure that we keep things in check. Also, the issue of disinformation and misinformation and fake news and all of that. It's also something that we need to pay close attention to. Especially, there's a narrative that's building that if the election doesn't pan out the way some people expect it to pan out, then it means that the election is not free, is not fair, is not credible. I think that is dangerous.
But that's always been the way, hasn't it? In Nigeria.
Not necessarily.
I mean, that's not good, but that's the way people always react.
What you see now is that now there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of excitement, which is good. One thing I want to build on what she said is that something has already shifted, right? The youth, they're going to be a major player in this election, right? And even the traditional, the leading parties, they're already responding to that. They are changing the way they are campaigning, they are changing the way they are doing things and all of that. So that is a mark of progress already. And whether the people, people get the outcome that they want or they don't, is a work in progress. We can't, even if the person that you want wins, that is not the end of it. And even if that person doesn't win, you have to keep at it. You have to keep at it. Change happens. Sometimes dramatically, sometimes in installment, and if you look at even some of the changes we have seen in our country, it takes a while. You get to an inflection point, and you get to a point of no return, and you keep on going from there. So I hope that no matter the outcome of this election, the enthusiasm will not flag. We won't say, okay, because we have got the person we want elected, then we should hands off, or that because we haven't got that person, then we should get disillusioned and we should back off.
I think a lot of that will obviously depend on how, free and fair the election is seen to have been. Because in the past, Nigerians have always associated elections with manipulation.
Well, I think we also have to be fair to ourselves, because sometimes we beat ourselves up unnecessarily. The fact of the matter is that our elections have also improved over time. At least you can see from 2011, there's been, let's go back a little bit. We had a very awful election in 2007. That the person that even won the election himself acknowledged that the election was lousy. And he had to put in a process, a way of opening up the process and
trying to clean it up.
To clean it up, right? Yeah. So, but from 2011, 2015, 2019, we have seen some consistent progress, especially with the introduction of technology. And even some of the things that we talk about now as things that we should worry about, they're actually, they're in a way, we're becoming victims of our own success, right? Before, what politicians used to do is to sit down and stuff ballot boxes, right? You can't do that again. Or they will go and sit down with the electoral officials, with the security officials and write figures. You can't do that again. So because they cannot do all those things, that now shifted the balance towards the voters. That's when, you know, the issue of vote buying is now becoming, you know, more prominent.
Well, that's an important point, because I wanted to raise that issue, because Idiot Hassan brought it up, the issue of money and how much you think this election is likely to be influenced by it. Because, for example, we've just seen in the last day or so the Central Bank of Nigeria coming up with a redesign of the Naira, and part of the reason why they're doing that is to try and eliminate as much as possible the monies that are outside the banking system that are often used to influence elections.
Well, you know, politicians will always find a way, whether you have new notes or not. You know, so that's not an issue. But there's a way I want us to look at this, right? Or there are different ways I want us to look at this. The first one is that there's a cynical game going on between the voters and the politicians, right? They are used to people coming to campaign to them during the you know, electioneering period, and that's the last time they will see them. They don't fulfill their promises, and you know, they see the politicians being transformed. You know, you are one guy with nothing. Then you get elected, then, you know, you have cars, you have houses, you travel abroad, you do all those things. And, you know, so the only time they see you, the only time they can get something from you is when you need something from them.
Right.
So it's people are quite cynical. And, you know, they say, okay, this is the only time we can get something from you. So let's get it up front. They want
and get as much as we can.
They want you to front load whatever it is. And they become so cynical that they look at all politicians the same way. They say, hey, all of them will make promises. They will only take care of themselves, not us. You know, so that's one way of looking at it. The second way of looking at it is that vote buying is actually not new. It's always been there, right? It's only that it's more prominent now because of the shift in the balance that I mentioned. The other thing is that, you know, my sense, and I might be wrong, is that whether you induce voters or not, right? I don't think it will significantly change the outcome. For you to even know who to give the money to, for you to even have the structure to deliver the money, that means you've
already gained an inroad into that community.
Into that community. So right. The only place where this will make a difference is that if Waziri and Charles are running neck to neck, right? Maybe, you know, because Charles, you know, has more money, maybe that might make some difference.
Although that's not in real life, that's not actually true. But
well,
you know,
we know which one is true. Anyway, but you get my drift. I don't think sometimes we overrate the importance of money, right? I don't think the money actually is what the money you give to the voters is actually what decide the outcome of the election. And by the way, elections are not cheap. You know, this is something we also need to acknowledge. It's not just the money that you give to induce voters. That is not the only place where you spend money. We have 176,000 polling units, right? If you are going to put 2 agents in the polling units, and you're going to give them money for their transport, and you're going to give them money for their food for that day because they're going to work for you for that day.
Yes.
Let's assume that you're going to give them 10,000 naira each, right? And you want to have presence because you want them to be there. You want to protect your votes and all of that. You give them 10,000 naira each. Charles, if you run the numbers, in 176,000 polling units, 2 of them, 10,000 naira each. That's 3.5 billion naira. That's what you spend on election day alone. You're not talking about putting adverts in the papers, running, doing rallies, and all those other things, the logistics and all the things you do around elections. So elections cost money. And, what you spend on election day is a lot of money. So the ability of the candidates to be able to raise money, not just their own personal money, will also be very, very critical.
Yes, very good points there. Let's turn to the second guest that we had, the author, Dr. Orwell Waziri, talking about human rights and human wrongs, something Nigerians are vaguely familiar with, according to him. His contention is that Nigerians don't understand human rights. If they did, they wouldn't lynch someone for alleged blasphemy or set a thief on fire in the market or praise a politician who impoverishes them. What do you make of his analysis?
I find his take quite interesting. Obviously, he's very passionate about the subject.
He has a PhD in human rights.
He teaches it, but I think sometimes we need to be fair to ourselves. People have put their lives on the line, including his dad. People might disagree with what his dad was fighting for, but he was fighting for his right and for his belief, right? And people have put their lives on the line. People have gone to jail. People fought for the independence of this country. People fought the military. And, we have people who are human rights activists. We have people we have a human rights commission. It can be better than that. But to just generalize that Nigerians, because of you have incidents of, lynching, of blasphemy, which, that does not necessarily define who we are as Nigerians. And that also signifies failures in other areas, right? So what I take away from what he has done, which I think is commendable, is that, especially in a democracy, the dignity of man, whether you even have democracy or not, the dignity of man should be the centerpiece of society, right? And we should do everything that we can to continue to improve on that. So that I would take from him. And by the way, it's tied to, I think this is also one of the things I don't want to get. The dogs and the baboons. Yeah, I think this is, that is a proverb, right? That the president uses, an Hausa proverb.
Yes, I remember him using
that. That the dog and the baboon will be
soaked in blood.
Be soaked in blood.
Yeah.
There's a way in which people read that literally. Sometimes you need the context, the cultural context, to appreciate some idioms very well.
Yeah, that's true.
He was not using that to say, there should be political violence, right? He was just saying, it will be tough, it will be bloody, right? But in the context of politics, people
they translate it literally.
Not just literally, they politicize it, they weaponize it. They say, he's inciting people to violence, But that doesn't take away from his message about, about.
And talking about politicization, we've got about a minute or so. He talks about human rights issues being particularly important to draw attention to with the election campaigns currently underway in Nigeria. And this is a good moment, isn't it?
Absolutely. This is the time when we should be asking the candidates, what do you plan to do to further the frontier of human rights in Nigeria, especially on some areas like police reforms. The thing about the police is this, right? The police is the representation of the state. They're supposed to protect the people, right? And also serve as instrument of justice. If the police also now begins to abuse people, to curtail people's rights, that undermines the state itself. So and that also undermines the trust and confidence of citizens in the state, right? So we need to ask the candidates, police reform that is ongoing. And if you link back to the issue of NSAS, that's something that built up, to that point, and is not an issue that has been totally resolved. So what do you plan to do to ensure that the instrument of the state is not used to oppress the citizens?
Well, I hope you're reflecting that in your Agora policy documents that come out, because I think you're doing a very good job there. Waziri, I want to thank you very much indeed. And Waziri, of course, founder and executive director of Agora Policy, and also an Arise News and current affairs analyst. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again next week from me and the entire team here in Abuja and London. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.